The craziest Mr. Burns schemes in The Simpsons.
Excellent. Excellent.
First up at bat is Season 3, Episode 17, Homer at the Bat. This one is one of the earliest episodes to showcase how Mr. Burns cheats. It's not enough that his plant softball team is doing well. They have to do better than well when there's money on the line. Well, not a lot of money. It's a wager between the rich over and who will win the big game. Homer Wonder Bat isn't reassuring enough. A natural will not do. Burns needs a supernatural talent, and a lot of them. So Burns decides to hire some professional talent. His first idea is to recruit his favorite baseball players from when he was young, but since most of them are retired or dead, Smithers recommends more modern players that are, alive.
All right, find me some good players, living players.
This roster includes the likes of Darryl Strawberry, Wade Boggs, and Ken Griffey Jr. He hires them all as an employee at the nuclear plant. Despite some wanting to work legitimately, he forces them to sign up for the softball anyway. Everything seems to be coming up Burns. Unfortunately, nearly all the star players can't hit the field. Some can't make it due to a freak accident. Others can't play because Burns is frustrated with Don Mattingly's hair. Ultimately, the game is won, but only because of Homer's abilities at the plate. And by abilities, we mean getting knocked out by a pitch. What makes his plan so crazy is that Burns himself partly sabotages it. He didn't need all those pro players. He didn't end up getting most of them anyway. Maybe next time, stick with your reliable employees instead of a butt kisser like Strawberry. A more passionate scheme can be found in Season 5, Episode 4, Rosebud. As this title implies, this episode relates to Citizen Kane. In this case, his teddy bear Bobo represents Burns' childhood innocence. But while Kane's beloved shed was ultimately trashed, Bobo survived World War II. The battered bear ends up in Maggie's arms. Burns has a chance to get his bear back, unfortunately. This is one thing Burns can't buy. He tries to purchase Bobo from Homer, generously agreeing to buy him one of the good Hawaiian islands, but Maggie doesn't want to give up Bobo. Homer makes the tough call and denies Burns his Bobo bear. Angered by this defiance, Burns does everything in his power to get Bobo.
Shot Smithers, I'll be squeezing my Bobo in no time.
He's too feeble to fight for the bear, but he does know how to drive a town crazy. Burns' plan is to take over television and remove all beer from Springfield.
All beer trucks heading toward Springfield have been diverted. This town will be as dry as a bone.
Heinous stuff for a man who just wants a Steffi. However, it does lead to Burns' own sitcom, which is mildly amusing. It isn't long before a mob forms to snatch the bear from Maggie. While they initially succeed, Maggie's disappointment is enough to convince the mob that they're wrong. Maybe stealing from a baby isn't such a good thing. With no other means to get this bear, Burns is reduced to the one thing he would never do: beg.
Please.
Burns confronts Maggie in her sandbox and tries to reason with her. Well, it's not much reasoning as it struggles to wrestle the bear away. When that fails, Burns accepts defeat and urges Maggie never to lose Bobo. Feeling bad, Maggie returns the bear to Burns, warming the old miser's heart. Is this a good ending or a bad ending? It's hard to say, but it was a scheme that involved taking over television and making Springfield free of booze. That's an elaborate link for acquiring a sentimental stuffed toy of youth. He really doesn't want to end up as Charles Foster Kane. Instead, he ends up as a cyborg in the future. Gambling becomes a perfectly greedy scheme for Burns in Season 5, Episode 10, Springfield, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Legalized Gambling. On paper, Burns' plans doesn't sound all that crazy. He's commissioned by the town to build a casino after gambling is legalized. While Burns doesn't come up with the most clever of titles, the casino idea seems to work. Where the plans go awry is how Burns manages the casino. He grows paranoid of the casino's patrons and wants to keep a close eye on them all at all times. This leads to him going full Howard Hughes. He becomes a germaphobe, puts tissue boxes on his feet, and starts growing out his hair. He even starts hallucinating that the germs are talking to him. Before Burns completes his transformation by designing an impractical plane, Smithers talks him out of the casino business. All it takes is a mere mention of the power plant to snap Burns out of his obsession.
Oh, my beloved plant. How I miss her. Bah! To hell with this!
It's not enough, however, to convince him that his replica of the Spruce Moose is not a working plane. Of course, when talking about Burns and crazy schemes, it's impossible to forget Season 6, Episode 25, Who Shot Mr. Burns, Part 1. This is easily the cruelest scheme that Burns had crafted. The rich power plant owner wants to remain the most wealthy in town. So when the local elementary school discovers oil on its land, Burns wants it. At first, Burns takes the deceptive route. He attempts to infiltrate the school as a teenager and recommends Skinner give the oil money to the nuclear plant. Despite Burns' usage of youthful slang like corking, this plan does not work.
Howdy do, fellow kids.
So Burns does what he always does when he can't get what he wants. He steals it. Burns builds a slant drilling oil rig. This structure siphons all the oil and makes everything worse for Springfield. The explosion of oil injures Bart and his dog. The ruptures in the ground led to Grandpa's nursing home being damaged and unlivable. The fumes from the rig makes Moe's Tavern impossible to operate, so Burns already making a lot of enemies with his oil job.
I'll kill that, Mr. Burns!
But he's not done yet. Burns enacts his second evil plan of the episode. He builds a massive contraption that will block out the sun in Springfield. With this contraption, Burns' nuclear plant can bring in more money from increased energy consumption. Now everybody has a reason to shoot Mr. Burns. Of course, he wouldn't learn the truth about who shot him until the premiere of Season 7. While Burns' oil scheme worked, his sun-blocking idea didn't. Homer and the mob tear it down in Who Shot Mr. Burns Part 2, where it becomes Shelbyville's problem.
What town did we just crush?
Shelbyville.
The environment takes a blow from Burns in Season 8, Episode 21, The Old Man and the Lisa. This is an episode where Burns is reduced from a millionaire to a former millionaire. He continues to lose money by surrounding himself with yes men. His dated stock choices led to him losing everything, going from stinking rich to just plain stinking.
Are you saying my money's all gone? But
Without a mansion or proper suit, Burns is unable to do anything. He can't do dishes or shop for groceries due to his inability to tell the difference between ketchup and catsup. He is forced into a retirement home that doesn't seem legal, but hey, this is that guy everybody hates. At his lowest, Burns turns towards Lisa, the only one who told him the truth. Rather than tell the little girl to shut up, he agrees to help her in her recycling efforts. Burns slowly builds up his empire, but Lisa has hope he'll do the right thing this time. But this is Burns we're talking about.
a nickel will buy you a steak and kidney pie, a cup of coffee, a slice of cheesecake, and a newsreel.
Although his new factory seems like a recycling facility, it hides a hideous secret. Burns takes a cue from Lisa's explanation about plastic rings choking sea life. He uses that plastic to trap tons of sea life and grind it all up for his factory's latest creation. As Lisa perfectly puts it, he hasn't changed at all. Burns is still greedy and even uses his money to show some respect for Lisa. His happy ending for this episode is that Lisa doesn't accept the money Burns gives her from the factory. While this does lead to Homer having a heart attack, it was still the right thing to do. Next up is the greediest of schemes in Season 9, Episode 12, The Trouble with Trillions. This is a classic case of Burns getting gritty. When failing to file his taxes, Homer is forced to work with the FBI against Mr. Burns. The U.S. government believes that Burns is in possession of the only $1 trillion bill. Burns had stolen it from President Harry S. Truman in 1945, and the U.S. wants it back. Homer is able to infiltrate Burns' home by pretending to be a reporter. Of course, Burns is dumb enough to believe Homer is a reporter and that he works for a ridiculously out-of-print publication like Collier's. Eventually, Homer gets Burns to reveal the bill and the FBI moves in. But when Burns makes a passionate speech about how the government controls us, Homer switches sides. He immobilizes the agents and escapes with Burns and the money. Well, not before Homer makes one of the agents touch a butt. Teaming up with the Smithers, Homer and Burns flee the country. They take off for Cuba, hoping to find a new home they can buy. That's just crazy enough to work. Well, almost. Burns meets with Castro to seal the deal. Unfortunately, Burns isn't that great at negotiating with dictators. Castro easily swindles the $1 trillion bill with the same logic as Darth Helmet in Spaceballs.
I think we can trust the president of Cuba.
Now give it back.
Give what back?
I can't believe you fell for the oldest trick in the book!
Now poor the trio of Burns, Homer, and Smithers trek back to America. Burns' faith in the American system is renewed, but let's be real. He's only returning because he likes being rich and no longer has the FBI pursuing him. At least he has a good story for Collier's. Burns' schemes takes a turn for the religious in Season 9, Episode 13, The Joy of Sect.
Ladies and gentlemen, behold your new god, Mr. Burns.
This is a brief scheme, but still crazy enough to be worth mentioning. The episode isn't really about Burns, but a new religious cult that has engulfed Springfield. When Burns learns of this latest trend, he can't waste an opportunity to swindle some gullible rubes. So Burns decides to establish his own religion. He goes all out for his declaration. He erects massive statues, hires aggressive guards, and dons a muscular suit to appear as a powerful god. It's just grand enough to work. Unfortunately, Burns' suit catches fire, and not in the metaphorical sense from Whom Shot Mr. Burns Part 2. With the fire incinerating his buff body, Smithers attempts to put out the flames of his charred employer. Now, less intimidating, Smithers recommends trying this presentation later. Maybe next time, Burns will go with a less flammable god body. Or, try a new religion like Special K.
He's all right, but he's no bowl of Special K. Mwah.
Next up is a monstrous scheme in Season 10, Episode 21, Monty Can't Buy Me Love. As the title implies, Burns once again discovers that he can't purchase affection. Springfield receives a rich visitor called Arthur Fortune. True to his word, he is a rich guy, but his giving nature makes the town love him. All Burns can do is threaten other people. Realizing he'll need more than a cattle prod for love, Burns seeks the help of Homer. But nothing seems to work as his donation attempts to go awry. So Burns turns his attention towards something more ambitious. With the added help of Frank and Willie, he takes off for Scotland to finally find the Loch Ness Monster. As strange as it sounds, the scheme to find the monster is a smart one. Burns drains the lake and manages to find the monster. He even subdues the monster, although the episode never shows how he did this. We'll have to take Burns' word for it here. Where Burns' plans go awry is his attempt to unveil the Loch Ness Monster in Springfield. King Kong logic tells us that the monster will probably strike out against humans, but the opposite happens. Nessie loves the attention. It's Burns who is overwhelmed by the attention. In his anxious stumbling, Burns ends up becoming more of a monster around Nessie. Another attempt at gaining public affection has failed. That's fine for Burns, though. He's used to being despised and gives up this effort. His last act of craziness is to give Nessie a job at a casino. Hey, at least he's not going all Howard Hughes again. Next up is a murder mystery in Season 13, Episode 5, The Blunder Years. This is probably Burns' most disturbing skeleton in his closet, or rather, skeleton in a sewage pipe.
Oh my God!
Homer is traumatized by his childhood for an event he can't recall. He soon discovers that the source of his fears was finding a dead body as a child in the old quarry. Trying to find closure, the Simpsons family investigates a quarry near the nuclear plant. Oh, and Wiggum was there since he's got a thing for solving crimes. After the quarry was drained, thanks to Marge's weird obsession with paper towels, the corpse is found. They retrieve the skull and decide to investigate the pipe where it was dislodged from. As they follow the path, the pipe takes them all the way to Burns' office. Who would have thought Burns had a corpse hatch? Having been revealed for dumping a body, Burns comes clean. He plays a film of when Smithers' father was working at the nuclear plant. Having brought his son to work, Smithers Sr. has a personal reason to prevent the plant's meltdown. He places his son in Burns' care and suffers radiation poisoning to save Springfield. While Smithers Sr. succeeds, he dies in the process. Thus, Burns raises Smithers like a son. That's a shocking twist. It's even more shocking when Smithers enters the room to learn the truth. Burns admits that he wanted to spare Smithers the horrible truth. Smithers partially understands but takes comfort in the fact that his dad died a hero. It's crazy that Burns considered this body dumping scheme as being all the rage at the time. Finally, there's Season 14, Episode 15, CEDO. This is an episode where Burns is beaten at his own game, his own silly game involving canaries. It's extra embarrassing that it's Homer who beats him. Through a mishap involving stripper oil, Homer ends up in a class for workplace success. With newfound knowledge, Homer aims to become a better employee at the nuclear plant. He investigates some issues with the plant and hands them over to Burns. Burns, however, refuses to read any of them. Why would he take advice with a decaying plant, having stood for so long?
Find a patsy.
Hello.
You're quite the friendly fellow, but right now I'm looking...
So Homer decides to take the deceptive route. He overhears Burns' crazy scheme of placing the plant ownership with a literal canary. This is Homer's chance to take over the plant. With Bart's help, Homer stages a scheme where the canary is missing and inspectors are on the way. Burns panics without a pasty. In his desperation, he turns legal ownership over to the plant to Homer. When it's revealed there weren't real inspectors, Homer assumes full control of the power plant. His first attack is to kick Burns out of his office. Well, more accurately, throw him off a balcony.
Eat crowd, old man!
But while Burns goes on a drug bender, Homer learns how hard it is to run a nuclear plant. Eventually, Homer turns the plant back over to Burns, but that's too easy and not evil enough. Seeking revenge, Burns goes the extra mile to drug Homer and wall him up in a cemetery crypt. But with no Smithers to help him, Burns can't wall Homer up in time. Thankfully, Homer doesn't take it personally. He even gives the old miser a coat to feel good about having his plant back. Crazy schemes just come with a Burns package. So, what do you think? Were there any episodes we missed? Which episode do you think had Burns' craziest scheme? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos.